Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us to another episode of NLUD Conversations. Today, I have Nitin Mittal sir with us, who's the General Counsel of Signify Lighting. Today, we will have an extensive discussion across various aspects covering company secretaryship as a qualification, journey in in-house roles, going in, exploring into various sectors, and team philosophies. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Manas, to interact with you.
Yes, and it's a greater pleasure to bring you on board as you are one of our own and alumni of the NLU Delhi LLM program. So it's so happy to have you back.
I'm proud to be an alum of NLU Delhi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nitin sir, and taking out the time. I would like to ask, how is it that students who are trying to find an entry into in-house roles are finding issues? As a general counsel, would you suggest any reforms to the in-house system at large and how we can initiate our affiliation with universities?
Correct. So first of all, I think it's a pleasure to come to
Please,
NLU
please.
Delhi again.
Please.
I was, of course, a student also at the university.
Right.
And it's a pleasure to also share my learnings and experiences with students. On the internship program, I would say that if the students really want to go to the corporate directly from law school, the internship programs which are structured at NLU level needs to be revamped to a certain extent. It has to be more structured so that you are targeting in a very structured manner. For example, I'll give an example. In the internship program, if you want to work in a corporate, you need to have a very wholesome view of
Right.
how corporates work. You need to really feel how businesses work. So while in NLUs you understand the law, but how do you apply the law in different business situations? That you can only learn when you do a proper internship. So for example, if you have a 5-year course, you can structure the internship programs in maybe 4-5 phases where you do a first internship at a manufacturing company, second internship you do in a sales organization, really understand how
Right.
sales deals are done, what are the
Right.
issues in sales, what are the issues in marketing. For example, AI is the new issue. What are the issues in social media? What are the issues in, say, procurement or real estate or insurance
Right.
or treasury or finance or tax for that
So
matter.
business insight into
So
these
business
sectors.
insight is something which rigor has to be there in the internship program. So the students are actually ready as soon as they pass out of law school to really work in a corporate. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult for them to really jump into the business straight away.
Right. I think that's a great insight.
Mm.
You've also been a student at NLS Bangalore.
Right.
You've been a student of NLU Delhi itself in the LLM professional program.
Right.
What are some aspects which you believe set these institutions apart, right? Because there is a lot of hue and cry, and admittedly so, over preference to certain institutions. Is that an objective preference, or is it because of the opportunity exposure gap amongst, let's say, NLUs and other traditional state universities or other universities?
I would say, for example, NLS Bangalore, or for that matter, NLU Delhi, the academic rigor is very, very good.
Right.
The subjects and the contemporary way people teach in these universities stands out from other universities. That is what I saw in person as well, and that is why I wanted to do some courses from the universities when I was on the job as well. Now, if you compare with other universities, for example, the traditional universities, maybe universities which are having 3-year courses, those universities' curriculum is very different from a 5-year course or from national universities. So I would say there is an objective criteria where people prefer national universities as against other universities, and that objective criteria is because the academic rigor and the exposure that student gets to a wide variety of good professors, experienced professors, a wide variety of curriculum,
Right.
and maybe also diversity of students, background of students that you have, the interaction that you have, the rigor that you have in competition. For example, you have mood competitions, negotiation competitions, which will also help students really develop further. So I would say there is some distinction which is there, which I can see also personally.
You've been part of these places, so
Correct.
it's a touch and feel thing as well, right?
It is
Somehow.
a touch and feel thing also. But I would like to also add that, for example, if you give a CLAT, right, you have rankings from say 1 to 1000.
Right.
There may not be many distinctions between a person who scores a say 100th rank to a 300th rank.
Exactly.
So top 10, 15 NLU students may more or less be the same, and the university is also similar. But when you go much beyond the rankings,
Yes,
then
yes.
it, of course, the hard work and the rigor differentiates.
It's not that the candidates are preferred just on the basis of that, but you know that being out of a certain institution, there are parameters which would be largely satisfied.
Correct.
So maybe that cuts down some professional training exposure aspects.
Right.
Although it is not the case, most people are still from non-NLUs and traditional universities as well, so they do better also.
Of course, there are a lot of students. It's not that, but the age is changing.
Right.
Right. Now with changing age, changing environment that you have, you also need to develop yourself. Be the same.
It's the professional environment of being updated constantly which gives you the edge somewhat, and anyone can have that if
correct. Absolutely correct.
No, we had it until your BCom based experience, right? So as a follow up to that, now you've eventually forayed into your interest for legal expertise and inclination, and after your program at the NLS, do you think you pursued? So when was CS in this timeline?
So CS I did somewhere in with law only, somewhere in 2002.
Right.
Somewhere in 2002 itself. And NLS I did somewhere in 2014.
Right.
16. So it's quite long time after that when I was working. So I felt a need that I need to sharpen my knowledge on business laws, because the program at NLS is quite rigorous in terms of different subjects that you need to know as a business lawyer. So if you need to grow as a business lawyer and really give good expert advice and solutions to the business, that is a good course for you to do. So that is why I enrolled in that.
Right.
So it's
is it the MBL, Masters in Business Law?
Yeah, correct. That is the correct course.
Great. Now, after you entered into in-house roles, I think OSRAM was one of the beginnings which aligns with where you are right now.
Correct.
How did you, let's say, put your foot in that industry, right? From white goods to lighting, right? From that sector onwards. Then let's say for somebody who's in a certain sector and has entered and they wish to grow, because it is a given that you're supposed to change roles every now and then for having multi-sectoral or multi-role experience. So what is the kind of mindset or inclination somebody who's entered their profession in an in-house role should adopt, keeping their, let's say, next 5-10 year roadmap into mind?
See, I didn't have that privilege to really choose industries, to be very frank.
Okay.
So when I worked in Himachal from year 2003 to 2006, I was in an industry called, they used to manufacture these ferrite components.
Okay.
Which is used in mobile phones, electric industries. I was there at the manufacturing side, and that gave me exposure on labor laws, factory operations. It was a good experience. I also remember reading a book which was suggested by the president at that point of time, which is called The Goal by Goldratt, which exposes you to the principles of constraint thinking. Right. The theory of constraints, so to say. But when I chose OSRAM, it was not out of, I will go to this industry. I had a few job options. And this was the company which I preferred because it was a multinational company. The role was quite broad. Also, it gave me a chance to move back to Gurgaon, because there I was in Himachal, the opportunities were less. So it was a good opportunity to go back. Then I worked with OSRAM for 10 years. It was part of Siemens till 2009. So I was part of the Siemens compliance legal team as well. And OSRAM, it gave a good exposure because being a company present in almost all areas of go-to markets, whether it's B2B, B2C, D2C was not so prominent at that point of time. But you get exposure in litigation, you get exposure in customer deals, consumer deals, you get exposure in compliance, you get exposure in governance, advisory, all sorts of things. Now, after 10 years, I always wanted to work with a company like Philips Lighting. And, and so it was only out of providence or whatever reason is there, I got an opportunity to work there. So I didn't choose it, I would say. I didn't say I want to work here, I don't want to work here. It was a good opportunity, even though it was similar to lighting. I chose it because it was a natural, it was also my strength, because I already knew lighting quite close to my heart, and I could immediately from day one start working and contributing to the business. And I think probably that is why they preferred also me to some extent. So I would say as an advice to people, theoretically, I think it's good that people plan their career. So it's good to work in different industries, because then you get an opportunity to learn different sectors. For example, if you're working in financial services or in IT or in manufacturing or in FMEG, FMCG, you get to learn different businesses. Then your sector, you know all the sectors, and your job opportunities also increase. But these things look good when you say it, but it may not so happen. So you can plan a lot of things, but all plans,
Yes,
fail.
yes.
You can plan for everything, but that's how the world is. So I didn't plan for it. It just happened. Yeah.
Based on your professional journey, but if we compare it to today, how important or relevant is the qualification of being a company secretary? If you're purely looking at in-house roles, earlier it would definitely set you apart
Right.
and bring you an edge. But as of today, is it the case that beyond, let's say, if you're looking to be in the company secretary role, otherwise it helps, or even if it does not help formally, it's something which teams, while looking to hire, prefer over other candidates who do not have that qualification, maybe?
So I would say I'm quite grateful to the company secretary position, because initially the company secretary qualification gave me a good, jumping board to immediately come in board meetings. And when you're attending board meetings, you have an exposure to the chairman, you have exposure to the independent directors. So it gives you a straight away access to the senior management. If you're not a company secretary, you are only a lawyer, you may not have that straight away exposure.
Right.
So that is a tremendous advantage that you get being a company secretary. You get access to everybody in the senior leadership. So I think that is a fundamental advantage that you see. But I would say that it's not necessary. There are a lot of people, I know a lot of friends who are only general counsels, not company secretaries. They are also on the board. They are also interacting with senior leadership. It's only the initial advantage that you get
Right.
of access that you can leverage to grow faster.
I think
within
it
the-
also widens your professional peers, because
Right.
you have pursued law, but when you pursue CS also,
Yeah.
you are naturally going to find a lot of your colleagues and friends from that time
Correct.
period in such roles.
Sure.
Right. So I'm sure that is also something which
That is
of
also
help.
there. Also, I think our company secretary qualification also gives you added knowledge on certain things which a law degree may not teach you.
Right.
For example, subjects on finance or economics, or certain things on corporate law, which may not be so rigorous in a law school because you have so many subjects to learn. So that gives an advantage, because then you can understand business better. You can read financial statements much more better than a pure lawyer. So it gives you advantage in terms of understanding business and interacting with the board in a certain
Right.
way, which a pure law student may or may not have. It depends on the student. For example, a student who is from commerce background may have that advantage, but a student who's coming from science background or humanities background may not have that advantage, right? They'll
Right.
have to really learn those.
Maybe it's just shortening the learning
It's
curve.
just the initial advantage.
Yes,
That is
yes,
what I would say. You asked that initial advantage.
Yes, yes.
That is what I got, but then you'll have to build on it. That's the whole differentiation
Right.
that you have.
Right. I think then it gives a lot of perspective for people who are considering pursuing CS. A lot of my peers, maybe not in NLUs or in my university so much, but they still towards the second or third year of the last 2 years of their college, they tend to take this up.
Yeah.
Right. Now, once let's say you have entered the role at a GC stage, what are your expectations from a fresher, or the the initial years of experience you demand from anyone joining your team? Maybe they are joining at a later stage also, but if they are transitioning into an in-house role, maybe they were working in a law firm earlier, a chamber earlier, or some compliance based roles earlier, but they are entering the in-house team, what are some minimum expectations or like unlearning and relearning you have to do with them so that their thinking is aligned? A lot of people find people who are coming from litigation to be very, versus based thinking on points, right? It's a very
Right.
strategic outcome based idea
Right.
from a litigation point of view. So
Hmm.
from this point of view, any, let's say, amongst your experience in teaching your juniors in the team, right? What are some aspects which are really difficult to identify in you and to improve them upon?
I'll give an example. For example, recently, we have a new person, of course, and one of the things that I was discussing with that person is implementation of the DPDP Act.
Right.
So while that person is not so experienced in the DPDP Act, but the issue which I see with freshers is that they don't see a holistic view. First, they need to understand the business. They need to understand how the business works and then apply the law to that. So what I want from freshers is to not to apply the law first and understand the business later.
Okay.
They need to first understand the business, really the nuances of the business, and then see how law is applied. How do we apply the law there? That is one skill which I really need. Second skill is, which I see also freshers, to be very hardworking, to be passionate about their role, and really see that they have a great opportunity to make change within the company. I think all legal professionals, we have a important obligation to really show that we can add value, and that zeal and passion should shine through. And
Right.
that is why people will,
Right.
ask for a
Right.
lawyer. Third is, I think freshers should, we expect them to be really contemporary on AI, on social media, on digital things. This is something which youngsters should actually be, it's like, should be very fluent. And if it is not, then that advantage they lose. So that is something which I feel
What they
that
bring fresh to the table, right? It's that fresh perspective.
that's a
Yeah,
fresh
yeah,
perspective which they
yes.
bring to the table, which I think really should do. Fourth thing which I think is that sometimes freshers don't really reach out to people.
Right.
So you cannot work in silos in a company.
Right.
You have to actively reach out. You cannot be in your table and just work in your own shell.
Right.
You have to reach out proactively to people, understand the expectations, understand the business, understand how things work, so that you can give proactive solutions. As a legal counselor, you can only be effective when you really understand what is happening every day, and how you can support,
Right.
and how you can give
Right.
legal solutions,
Hmm.
because otherwise you'll be reactive, not proactive. So I want people to really reach out, engage, collaborate.
One needs to find their space also in the organization,
Yeah,
because
but-
it has been existing. The team
Correct.
structures, they already exist. If you're joining a fresh,
Right.
you make that space and relations and find yourself somewhere in
Correct,
that.
correct. Also, I think what I see in youngsters is that managing conflict, for example, managing tension between is very, very important. How do you manage that tension? How do you manage conflict? How do you manage when people say no to you, or people don't listen to you?
Right.
Sometimes youngsters
Right,
get
right.
very hot-headed, so that thing is something you learn by experience. I would not say that you can immediately learn it from day one. So I think those things. And fifth is, I think, reading what is happening, reading diverse things on subjects. That is very important. That is how you will broaden your horizon and your thinking. If you read only on one thing, you will not be a good lawyer. You have to read on diverse things. That is how you will be part of the management table. If you know,
Right,
if you
right.
know only law, you may not be. So as a lawyer, law is essential to you, but not the sole thing. You have to know a lot of other things.
It is your domain of expertise, but
yeah,
your
yeah.
role is wider in
wider
that
than
sense.
that. So I think a lot of things which youngsters can do, but I would say the current youngsters are very, very hardworking, very smart. They know the law, they know everything. Only I think the application of how to do it practically is something which you learn by experience. Everybody learns it by experience. I have also learned it by experience. So it's nothing new.
I think that gives a great insight for someone who's entering into that aspect, right? Some pointers to keep in mind for them. While we speak of your work, in terms of the scope of work, because we like to cover different sectors, different general counsels, I understand it's a lighting white goods company. If you could give us a brief of what the business is, and related to that business, what are some unique nature of aspects which come under you? Not just transactions, let's say, with respect to the products. Sometimes we hear that because of the nature of their product, the nature of complaints, consumer complaints, product
Correct.
liability, etc. So what are such special characteristics of the scope of work in your team?
Right. So Signify is the world leader in lighting. We are the largest lighting company in the world. We were formed 100 years back. So earlier Philips Lighting, and we were the pioneer in lighting. If you see the initial general incandescent bulb
Right.
that was invented by Philips. Currently, Signify is present in more than 60 countries across the world with more than 28,000 employees. We are present in almost all spheres of lighting applications. So whether it is B2B, whether it's B2C, D2C, e-com, quick-com, all sorts of things. Lighting, if you see, currently has huge potentials. For example, I'll give you an example. For example, we have done sports lighting. For example, stadium lighting. We do office lighting.
Right.
We do home lighting. We have changed into connected lighting now. So you can control lights through your mobile phone.
Smart lighting,
Smart lighting.
basically,
Smart
yes,
lighting. Now, lighting itself has certain specific legal challenges also. For example, if you see the B2B business, for example, where you do projects. So there you not only sell the product, you also do installation, commissioning, testing. You maintain the product for more than 5 years or 10 years for that matter.
Right.
So there are different challenges.
It becomes
there.
lighting as a solution.
Lighting
than
as a solution.
product.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right,
You are very well informed, I would say, Manas. So lighting as a service is there as a
right.
component, right? Where you finance it and it is an OPEX deal.
Right.
Those things also you do. Product liability is something which also comes up. Not in India so much, but where the law is still developing, but in other countries like Australia, for example, where you have different consumer laws, Australian consumer law, where the customer has rights more than the warranty that you give.
Right.
So there is a concept of durability, reasonable expectation.
Right.
Where what does the customer expect a product of this nature, of this price, of this manifestation that you're doing in the packaging? What is the lifetime of that product could be? Now, if you say a warranty is 3 years, but the reasonable customer could expect it 5 years, then you have to honor that.
Right.
So those are some of the legal issues which come up on the product side as well. But since we are also present in manufacturing, there are manufacturing issues. You have the labor code recently.
Right.
As general counsel, you also have to advise on labor code. You have now the Personal Digital Protection Act.
Somewhere maybe the e-waste also forms a
e-waste, of course,
unique aspect to the products.
Correct. So, for example, in 2016, the new e-waste rules came up.
Right.
They were very theoretical. We challenged them in High Court.
Right.
And now there are new rules which are coming up, but we are still complying with them. So there are, of course, carbon credits, and you can have those carbon things. So e-waste is something, but not a very major challenge, I would say, to the lighting industry. But still, it's something that, see, we are a very responsible company. We believe that when you do business, you have to do it in a sustainable manner.
Right.
So sustainability is something which is core to our business. So e-waste is something which we definitely would comply and ensure that the company complies with it.
And as I understand, the nature of your role is not India based, it's specific focus as well, right? And it has presence in over almost 60 countries you mentioned.
Right.
In your experience, what kind of changes in thought process or workflows, compliances come in when you're looking at an aspect not from the point of view of Indian law, but let's say from a global standard or other jurisdictions? You could give us some example where you find some similarities or differences in how things work. Any interesting anecdote on that?
Yeah, sure. So, for example, if you see Australia, for example, right, it's a common law country as well, right? But still the laws are quite different. So, whether it is a labor law or whether it is Australian consumer law, for example. For example, in labor law, for example, the employee has different rights. So, for example, in India, if you are terminating an employee, you need to give a show cause, you need to give principles of natural justice, you need to adhere. There, the principles are much stricter. An employee would also has a right under law to have a support person in interviews.
Okay.
Too. So there is much more rigor in those laws to really enforce their rights. So law may be similar in both the in both the countries, but the rigor in which they implement it and the orientation towards employees is much more. For example, from a labor law perspective. Now, if you see from a consumer law perspective, the laws would be more or less similar. Of course, much more elaborate and much more consumer friendly. So they are much more consumer friendly in Australia. Right, you also have this Product Liability Consumer Protection Act in India, but they are not enforced with so much rigor as a consumer would expect.
The reasonable standards for what is a violation may greatly vary
between the countries. So when a counsel who's operating in India but also in Pacific, when you have a problem which is a similar problem in India and a similar problem in Australia, you will look at it from different lens. In India, you can be flexible in terms of reacting to that. But in Australia, you'll have to have a higher standard of expectation there. So you have to apply that lens.
Thank you so much again for taking out the time and joining us. And it's my pleasure to host you, as you are one of our own. You are an alumnus of NLU Delhi's LLM program.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, man.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you.